Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the summer meeting of Delaware Valley Veterans Consortium. We're going to start at 9:01. We're just waiting for more people to come in. Thanks for coming this morning, and we look forward to presenting about the justice system affecting veterans in our area. Thanks. All right, I have 9:01 on my clock, so we're going to go ahead and start. So good morning, everybody. My name is Hugo Lenza. I'm the Chief Strategic Partnerships Officer for the Travis Manion Foundation and the Chair of the Delaware Valley Veterans Consortium. This is DVVC's first virtual quarterly meeting since the pandemic forced us to change how we communicate and get together. I think you've been aware that we've done a couple town halls virtually, but this is our first quarterly meeting. Delaware Valley Veterans Consortium is the area's Community Veteran Engagement Board, or CVEB, whose mission is to unite military and veterans service organizations and advocates who share common goals to build programmatic capacity and increase services to clients under the umbrella of regional collaboration. This meeting is designed to share information about DVVC events, activities, and planning, and provide resource information to DVVC members and others working in the veterans space. When we've met in person, we spend the first several minutes of the meeting introducing ourselves to the others who are present. In lieu of that, we'd like you to add your name, the name of your organization, and a link to its website to the chat box. You can copy the chat box at the end of the meeting through clicking on the three buttons to the right of the space where you type your message. If you need information on how to do this, ask us in the chat box. One other announcement. DVVC elections will be held for the chair, secretary, and 2 at-large members of the executive board. The announcement and description of the responsibilities of each position will be emailed shortly to all DVVC members. Nominations are open until August 16th. Voting by email ballot will be in September, and at the October meeting, that will be virtual as well, but we'll also be able to vote there, and you'll be able to vote for new officers. If you are interested in running for one of the positions, please email your name, office you are running for, a 1-paragraph bio, and either a resume or live link to your LinkedIn profile page, and a short statement of why you want to be on the DVVC Executive Committee. You need to do that by August 16th and mail that to Larry Holman, Chair of the Nominating Committee, at ldholman40@gmail.com, and we'll put that in the chat. We'll add this information for further reference. Voting and running for the executive board is for DVVC members. Veteran service organizations are eligible to join DVVC. Please go to our website to fill out the membership application at www.dvvc.weebly.com. Again, that'll be in the chat box. During the course of this meeting, if you have a question for one of our panelists, please type it into the Q&A box, which you can access at the bottom of the screen. If your question is for a specific panel member, please put their name or the name of their agency with your question. At the end of all the panelist presentations, we will ask the questions that have been entered into the box. If we run out of time and you include your email address with your question, we will send you an answer. We will be uploading the presentation of the webinar into our website. The meeting on Zoom will be recorded and posted on all DVVC social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube page, and the website. Thank you for being here today. Now let's get going. So it's time to hear from our panelists. I will introduce each of today's panelists, who will make a short presentation about their organization, the services they provide, and how they are helping veterans receive justice within the legal system. After we hear from each of the panelists, there will be an opportunity for them to answer questions that have been previously submitted. Also, we will post the slide presentations on our website along with the recording on all DVVC social media sites. So we're going to start with New Jersey. So let's launch. So Bernard E. DeLury Jr., presiding judge, criminal part, Atlantic and Cape May counties. The Honorable Bernard E. DeLury Jr. was appointed to the Superior Court in October 2005 and is presently the presiding judge of Criminal Division in Atlantic and Cape May counties. Prior to coming to the bench, Judge DeLury was in-house counsel to several companies in the gaming industry. As Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Caesars Entertainment, a member of Fortune 500, New York Stock Exchange, CZR, Judge DeLury was responsible for completing the multi-billion-dollar merger of Caesars with Harrah's Entertainment to form the world's largest gaming corporation. Judge DeLury was a member of the Brigantine Board of Education in the Atlantic City Convention Center and Visitors Authority. Earlier in his career, Judge DeLury served on active duty in the United States Navy as a judge advocate. Recalled to active duty in 2004 and 2007, he was appointed as a tribunal president and member to determine the combatant status of Taliban and Al-Qaeda detainees held in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. In 2005, the Judge Advocate General of the Navy appointed Judge DeLury an appellate military judge of the Navy Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals in Washington, D.C. Judge DeLury retired from the military bench in 2011 in the Navy with the grade of captain after 25 years of service. He received a Bachelor of Arts degree, magna cum laude, from St. Charles Borromeo Seminary in Philadelphia and a Juris Doctor degree with international law honors from Rutgers in Camden. Next up, we have John Walter, licensed clinical social worker, veterans advocate, justice outreach specialist. He serves Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties in New Jersey at the Wilmington VA Medical Center. John Walter is a licensed clinical social worker who has worked at the VA for 9 years and is currently the Veterans Justice Outreach Specialist, or VJO. We'll hear more about that later. At the Wilmington VA, serving Southern New Jersey. John has extensive experience working with several mentally ill adults who have co-occurring substance use issues and come into contact with the forensic system. John was previously the VJO at the Oakland, California VA, where he helped plan and implement 2 veterans treatment courts. We also have Dr. Michael Mimms, veteran healthcare navigator, New Jersey Hospital Association. Dr. Michael Mimms served proudly as a United States Marine Corps officer and has dedicated himself to serving those who served. He is currently a veteran diversion program mentor in Atlantic County, New Jersey, and a veteran mental health care navigator with the New Jersey Hospital Association in Princeton, New Jersey. Most recently, he had the opportunity to instruct and certify approximately 60 probation officers and 30 nurses in the area of mental health first aid. The primary focus was to help the trainees better understand and identify the signs and symptoms of mental illness among the military veterans they encounter at their facilities. Dr. Mimms is excited about the opportunities to support our veterans and welcomes all inherent challenges that may occur along the way. So I have some questions for Judge DeLury. The first one is, what is the typical court event like when handling the Veterans Diversion Program calendar? Like format, participants, input, prosecutor, court actions, etc.
Thanks, Hugo, for the kind introduction. If it's okay, before delving into questions, I'd like to roll through the PowerPoint if that works for you.
Yep, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Not at all. Again, thanks for the kind introduction, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I look forward to today's presentation and hearing from Judge Dugan and Peg about how Pennsylvania approaches the issue of veterans coming into the to the crosshairs of the criminal justice system. Preliminarily, my opinions are my own. They don't necessarily express those of the New Jersey Judiciary, the Attorney General's office in New Jersey, or the prosecutor's offices. Preliminarily, some brief legislative history. New Jersey comes relatively late to the veterans diversion approach in the criminal justice system. Former Governor Christie in May 1st of 2017 signed into law amendments to the New Jersey Criminal Code, which are set forth in NJSA 2C:43-23 through 31, what we've termed the Veterans Diversion Program as defined in that statute. The Veterans Diversion Program is a program that we'll discuss a little bit further, but it's differentiated from what I understand to be a veterans treatment court. Now, the legislative history shows that the sponsors of the initial bill indicated they wanted to set up a treatment court, a specialized court, as it were, for the handling of veterans and other qualified individuals who meet that definition, who find themselves in the criminal justice system because of their either service-connected histories or for other reasons. Eventually, the program that found its way through the legislative process is the one that we're working with today, came through bipartisan support from both houses of the legislature and passed, I believe, unanimously, and went into effect on December 1st of 2017. Now, New Jersey doesn't have an approach towards specialty courts. Generally, the approach in New Jersey has been to identify case types, litigants, offenders, and then to assign them to one of the appropriate divisions of the existing Superior Court. I think that stems from our 1947 amendments to the Constitution, where New Jersey took the approach of a unified court system. The Veterans Diversion Program fits into similar diversionary programs in New Jersey. For example, pretrial intervention, which is the gold standard of our diversionary approach in Superior Court for serious, that is, indictable offenses. There's also conditional discharges, conditional dismissals, which occur in the courts of limited jurisdiction. And of course, there's recovery court, as we call it in Atlantic and Cape May County, sometimes referred to as drug court, where drug-dependent offenders are not diverted through the criminal justice system, kept in the criminal justice system, admitted to treatment, counseling, probationary supervision, and ultimately, if successful through that program, are graduated from it and receive expungements and proceed to their lives, hopefully substance and offense-free. So the Veterans Diversionary Program takes a similar approach. It's more or less a hybrid between the pretrial intervention program and the PTI program. In New Jersey, we don't speak to terms of felonies and misdemeanors. We have indictable offenses, which are crimes, and then we have non-indictable offenses, which are disorderly persons offenses. Sometimes people refer to them colloquially as felonies and misdemeanors, but so we're dealing in New Jersey with crimes and with disorderly offenses. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the purpose of the Veterans Diversion Program is to divert eligible veterans and service members to treatment versus traditional criminal justice process. The program is designed to address nonviolent third and fourth degree crimes and disorderly persons or petty disorderly persons offenses. There are some exceptions because this is a prosecutor's program, as we'll discuss in a moment. The prosecutor's very broad discretion in making charging decisions and referring matters to prosecution is an overarching concern. So there are occasionally, while the statute does not describe these offenses, there are occasionally second degree offenses, which I've seen referred to the VDP by the prosecutor. They tend to be nonviolent, of course, so you would not see, for example, a manslaughter as opposed to perhaps an official misconduct. Many service members, many veterans work in public safety, and sometimes their behavior while on duty in public safety may occasion, therefore, a charging event. So those are some offenses that I've seen deferred. Domestic violence tends not to be deferred if it is very violent. The prosecutor, because he or she has such discretion, will look at domestic violence and look at the circumstances. Has it been referred into family court? Is there going to be some family intervention as a result of it? Counseling and treatment handled in another part of the justice system in New Jersey outside the criminal path, although charges may still have been instituted. So those typical types of domestic offenses may find their way into the Veterans Diversion Program. No first degree offenses would be admitted. In order to be further eligible, you have to not have had a dishonorable discharge. And the statute refers to discharges other than dishonorable. So I think it's an open question as to whether or not another punitive discharge person would be eligible. Bad conduct discharge would be eligible, but clearly the statute indicates dishonorable discharge veterans are not eligible for participation in the program. We have approached in New Jersey, at least in our 2 counties, to host discharge upgrade seminars and learning opportunities for both practitioners, for the courts, for prosecutors to understand the process that's outside of the New Jersey judiciary to address the upgrade of a veteran's discharge to perhaps do 2 things: make that person more eligible perhaps for the Veterans Diversion Program, and then make the person eligible for veterans benefits that may be available. And Mr. Walter will speak to that perhaps a little later on today. The diversion in the program is for a period of 6 to 24 months. Offenses arising out of the Superior Court, the Court of General Jurisdiction in New Jersey, or from the municipal courts are eligible for diversion. Now, there's no limit to the number of enrollments that you can have in the Veterans Diversion Program. Hopefully, if treatment is successful and the veteran has gained some traction and is accessing services and has graduated from the program, that's great, and hopefully the criminal justice system is not part of that veteran's future. However, should the veteran find himself in the position of being charged again, the Veterans Diversion Program is available irrespective of the fact that he may have already participated. Unlike pretrial intervention or conditional discharges, which are only available one time. Additionally, there's other opportunities to enter into certain other diversionary programs. So if the veteran has identified with perhaps substance abuse that might be more effectively dealt with through the recovery court or that diversionary process, that's a discussion that the veteran's going to have with his legal advisor, perhaps with the veterans outreach people, as well as family and friends, to what might be the better way to approach it. In order to identify people who are available for these diversionary programs, there's a very early interaction with the person once they're charged. Charging officials, it's right in the statute indicating the police officers are to make inquiry about someone's veteran status and to begin as early as possible a diversionary track if appropriate. It's part of the intake process, so if it's missed even at the charging event, it can be identified during the course of the process when he's assigned a public defender, when the application comes for discovery. At any juncture of the criminal justice process, identification is made. I've tried to educate both our judges and our staff members here in our 2 counties to be very mindful of that and ask the question. At central judicial processing, the first time someone shows up to answer a criminal charge or a municipal charge in New Jersey, part of the rights advisement includes a recitation of the Veterans Diversion Program and eligibility standards that attach. We have monthly court appearances for the VDP with the VDP team and the judge assigned. The Veterans Diversion Program, the important features are accountability for the veteran, treatment opportunities and participation, community support, which includes mentoring and veterans organizations, and benefit counseling and mentoring. Finally, as I indicated before, this has been described as a prosecutor's program. That is, the statute has set it up so that the prosecutor is the instituting agency, is the approving agency. Because the legislation is so new, it hasn't been tested in either a law division or appellate activity to determine whether or not that discretion is unbridled. I would think that if ever challenged, it probably would not be, but my brethren in the appellate division may speak to that someday. But my rule of reason to these types of cases is, if all things being equal, if there's a benefit to society, there's benefit to the veteran, and there is no strict exclusion, one would think that the prosecutor's office would make the referral that's required. The way it's been working in our 2 counties, though, is very non-adversarial. It has really proceeded with a great buy-in from all people who are involved in the program. And that includes the Department of Veterans Affairs, private providers for those veterans who may not qualify for VA services, the public defenders, the private bar, and veterans organizations. Have the next slide, please. All right, so some statistics. These were current as of a couple of weeks ago. When I put the presentation together, we had a VDP list yesterday here in Atlantic County, which we conducted virtually. Ideally, these are events that occur in open court because I think the confluence of everybody together, including veterans and their support group, all in one place is very helpful. But we're living in a virtual world, so we have to take that approach. You can see there in Cape May County, so far since December of 2017, the success rate of those veterans enrolled has been 100%. We've had 5 graduates, and presently there are 6 current participants. Cape May County is a relatively less densely populated county in the state. Atlantic County, we're reporting an 85% success rate. It's a bigger program. We've had 11 graduates so far. Add to that 3, which we graduated yesterday. We have, as of today, 22 current participants. We had 2 enrollments. And unfortunately, we've had 2 terminations, which figures out to the success rate. Those terminations, just to speak anecdotally, obviously, and without regard to the individuals, one person just fell off the grid and could not be found and still not found. So that veteran was terminated from the program on the prosecutor's motion. And right now, and this is maybe one of the gaps in our statutory approach, there's no mechanism beyond issuing a bench warrant to reach out any different than any other criminal defendant once the program has been terminated. Another of the terms has since returned because of a bench warrant having been issued. That person had a mental health issue, had a break, and has now since been gravitated back to services, and I anticipate that'll be an application to re-enroll in veterans diversion at the appropriate time. Not everybody's qualified, obviously, so we've identified in Cape May County 5 cases where the person was not qualified, and that might be because of the nature of one's service, although that's very few. It's usually case specific. It's the type of the offense that is keeping someone out. 14 cases in Atlantic County were not admitted or found qualified. We've had over 40 court sessions in the 2 counties since December 2017. I've been honored and so gratified to be the judge assigned to monitor the Veterans Diversion Program on behalf of Vicinage 1 in our 2 counties. And once a month, we have the program, and then more frequently, I'll be interacting with the attorneys and sometimes with the providers when we're not on the record, as it were, to address individual cases as they work their way through. The Department of Veterans Affairs is a key provider and referral for most of our participants and is integral to the application process because the way our statute is set up, there has to be those mental health or substance conditions which have either exacerbated or placed the veteran in the position of, unfortunately, coming into contact with the criminal justice system. So that's a determination that's made early on during the application process. Jewish Family Services and other providers are available because our statute allows those who are in the organized militia who may not have either enough or any federal service to qualify as a DOD veteran. They may not then therefore qualify for services from the VA. Other providers are identified either on the state or local level. Types of cases, we've kind of touched on this already. Narcotics, a lot of CDS cases, thefts, burglary, motor vehicle offenses that generally occur at or near the time of the indictable offense will come up. Sometimes DV, as we've discussed, and sometimes things like simple assault, harassment that attach to domestic violence cases and cases of official misconduct, as we've said. Should we have the next slide, please? The VDP involves intensive supervision and treatment monitoring to ensure success of the veteran, culminating in the dismissal of the charges and return to society offense-free. Again, another overarching principle of what we're trying to do with the Veterans Diversion Program. And we're guiding veterans to engage and participate in treatment and services. And again, part of our monthly event is to delve into how the vet is interacting with treatment and services. We're also trying to expand mentorship relationships because of the newness of the program and perhaps some demographic reasons here in Southern New Jersey. We just don't have a great population base necessarily to reach all that, but folks like Dr. Mimms and others are really helping us with that and trying to identify more mentors. We've been, as we're graduating people now, starting to encourage our graduates to pay forward by mentoring or serving as an alumni example. Yesterday at our graduation, we had one of our graduates indicate that that was an important part of what he would like to do as part of his recovery, his treatment, his reintegration. We're trying to also leverage relationships with providers, government service, and community organizations as we're identifying them. Again, because we're a new program, that's an ongoing process. We're continuing to explore discharge opportunities and to maximize the range of benefits for veterans who enter our program. Again, trying to move it away from just how do we deal with your criminal charges, which is very important and sometimes the only thing that the service member or the veteran may be thinking about. But there are other opportunities out there that veterans should be aware of, take advantage of, and then hopefully make it available to others. And we're formalizing our graduation events to recognize the accomplishment and reentry to the citizen service member ethos. Any of us who have served before know that there's usually a culmination event when something has been achieved in the military, and from formal to less formal and everything in between. And we've been doing that more or less ad hoc, and the prosecutors in both counties have been very interested in making the formalization there. And we're using recovery court and drug court as our example. Our program is not as big. We don't have as many participants. Our recovery court in the two counties has 800 participants. So by comparison, our 30 or 40 compared to 800, we're a smaller outfit, but we're definitely doing some very important work there in our graduation process. I think is a great way to formalize it, recognize it, and give the service member or the veteran something to take away with him or her as they return to the community. Next slide. And finally, I'll leave this up for just a few moments to gain more information about what we've done here today or about the Veterans Diversion Program in New Jersey. Simple Google search will get you to almost all of these sites. If you're applying, it's a county-based application. So the provider is going to work with the county prosecutor. The veteran's going to work with his representative and make application to the program on a county level to deal with the charges. If there is an attorney general case that involves a veteran, I recommend that you reach out for the Veterans Diversion Program leadership in the particular county where the case may be found, and then the AG's program is very similar to the county prosecutor's program. Military and Veterans Affairs Department in New Jersey, the AG, New Jersey courts, the public defender, and then a site to the criminal code. So I think that concludes my formal presentation, Hugo, and I'm happy to field any questions that you might have.
Great. Just in the interest, thank you for that, Judge DeLury. That was thorough, and I learned a ton. Thank you very much. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to make sure that I'll cycle through the other New Jersey attendees to make sure that we can pull their role into this. So, John, can you talk about your role within the diversion program?
Yes, Hugo, thank you so much for having me today. So my role with the Veterans Diversion Program is to partner with the Judge DeLury, but also with the prosecutor's office and with the court to help veterans navigate through the process. So I'm a Veterans Justice Outreach Specialist with VA, and my role with VA is to target veterans in the justice system and help them get the treatment and that they need, appropriate treatment. More often than not, clinical treatment, mental health treatment, substance use treatment. So specific to the diversion program, my role is to help veterans at the front end of the justice system to help get through that program and navigate the services through that program. So my role is to really be the VA liaison to help link them to the treatment process, help them case manage them through the process to make sure they have appropriate treatment, and really to throughout the court process to report that treatment progress back to the prosecutor in the court. So I'm there in the court helping veterans navigate the process, reporting the treatment updates, and really making sure that they're on their recovery process and making sure that they that they find the treatment that they need.
Awesome, thank you. And Michael, so you're a critical piece of all this. How does one become a veteran diversion program mentor? Can you unmute yourself, Michael?
How's that? Am I straight? Okay. The application piece is pretty simple. In most cases, you are a veteran to be a mentor, but it's not always. Some jurisdictions, you can be an officer, a police officer, or something like that. But in my case, it's been my experience that you were prior a vet. You also have to complete an 8 to maybe 15-hour course of instruction that kind of certifies you to be a mentor. And then you just go and contact the courts, maybe like a Judge DeLury's office, where you meet with maybe the prosecutor and let him know, hey, I'm interested in the program. I'd like to be a mentor. All jurisdictions in New Jersey, all actual counties have a program state mandated, and you're off and running.
Cool. And how many mentors are in the system at any one time, Michael? Do you know?
Well, that's a good question. As the judge said, it's not a big program, specifically in Atlantic and Cape Bay. I've been in the program for about 1.5 years now. That includes the actual schooling, and I've had one that successfully graduated, I guess, about 6 months ago. But it's a great program.
And John, how many of you are there in New Jersey? You're specifically linked with a medical center, correct? So is there just one of you for New Jersey?
Correct. Well, yeah, so I cover 3 counties in New Jersey. We have another VJO that covers Salem County as well as Newcastle County and Wilmington. So the hospital that I'm linked to is out of Wilmington, Delaware, but I primarily work in New Jersey. So the 3 of us really target this coverage area in the VA to outreach the jails, outreach the courts, and work with law enforcement. So the VJO program is really to target the front end of the justice system and help veterans navigate back to the treatment system so they don't end up in the justice system. And specifically, I think Peg will talk to this later, but there's a VA or multiple VAs at every VA hospital. There's a VJO at every hospital or more. And so each VJO program sort of decides how to target the system depending on the resources that they have. Some hospital systems, VAs, will only have 1 VJO, whereas some will have more than 1. We're lucky at the Wilmington Hospital in that we have 3 now. We had 1 for many years, and then I came on board 5 years ago in Wilmington, and now we have 3 within the last year. So we can target, we can spend our time in the court system, we can spend our time in the jails, and we can spend our time navigating with law enforcement and providing training. So we try to focus as much as we can to get the most bang from our buck for helping veterans.
Great, thanks. Judge DeLury, this question just came in, and I think with your presentation, it might be appropriate here. So the question is, what recourse does a veteran have when a prosecutor rejects their application? The question here says unjustly, but I assume there's kind of unjustly is.
Well, I guess that might be my call. First of all, I apologize if my microphone was going in and out. Electricity is the high priest of false security. What I think should happen, or what might likely happen, is their advocate, their attorney, would file a motion. That's how anything happens in court. So you file a motion and say, I was rejected from the Veterans Diversion Program, and I should have been let in because. And then I'd ask the prosecutor to respond, and I'd call it in front of me. Now, it is, the statute says it's the prosecutor's discretion, and as I indicated earlier, like PTI, that's also a very similar prosecutor's program. Like drug court, there's a statute that keeps people in and lets other people out, and but that's all made on a judicial determination. And then if DeLury's right or DeLury's wrong, then there's the appellate division, hopefully, to write a decision that says how is the prosecutor's discretion to be administered fairly, justly.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much. And then one final question for New Jersey, and Judge DeLury, I think this goes to you. There's a question here about, are all uniform services recognized? So let me be a little bit more specific. So National Guard, Reserve, active duty, retired, all of those are considered veterans that fall under the criteria?
Veteran is defined for New Jersey purposes as any member of the active duty currently serving or who has served and had a discharge other than dishonorable, members of the reserve components thereof, and members of the organized militia of New Jersey. So if you have Pennsylvania Guard service and only that, and you don't have a discharge or not currently serving perhaps as an Army reservist, that might be a rare circumstance, but it's a pretty broad church. We try to get as many in as we certainly can.
Great. Thank you, Judge DeLury, John, and Michael. We'll have time for more questions after, but just in the interest of time, we're going to move on to Pennsylvania. Also, just public service announcement. Just a reminder, if you would like to ask one of our panelists a question, please put it in the Q&A. We've answered actually a couple questions already, which is awesome. If it is for a specific panelist, please include that person's name or the name of their agency with your question. And again, this is being recorded, so if you need to refer back to an answer, we can certainly do that. You'll be able to do that through the recording. All right, so now we're going to go to Philadelphia. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our two panelists from Philadelphia. Patrick F. Dugan, President Judge, Philadelphia Municipal Court. Judge Dugan was appointed to Philadelphia Municipal Court in 2007 and elected to Municipal Court in 2009. He helped start Veterans Court in 2010 and continues to preside in Veterans Court. He was elected to President Judge in 2019. In addition, Judge Dugan served as a paratrooper, infantry, civil affairs, JAG, political officer, coalition provisional in Iraq, Afghanistan, Panama, and South Korea. He is a retired captain. He's very proud of the fact that he's a Mustang in the U.S. Army Reserves. So Judge Dugan, can you just do a quick presentation of your world?
Quick presentation of my world. My world is extremely complicated right now. But I appreciate the folks, what you're doing in New Jersey. Judge DeLury, thanks for your service as well, but appreciate that Cape May County and Jersey are on board, and those numbers will rise. I can guarantee you that. And to John Walter and Dr. Mimms, appreciate what you're doing as well. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that all those folks that are out there on this Zoom hearing are true believers in trying to assist our veterans. None of us want to leave anybody on the battlefield, whether it's back here in Philadelphia or Cape May County or from Fallujah. We want to make sure that we carry them off. And the folks I know that are out there, you are part of the crusade as well to assist people, to assist our veterans after they get home. Remember, it's a select group of people. Raise the right hand, swear to defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and are willing to put their lives on line, are willing to give our nation a blank check. That's what this is all about. That's why the VA is set up. That's why all these organizations are set up to assist veterans. You're involved with the Travis Manion Foundation, and if not me, who? That's the book. That's the phrase that Travis had. If I don't go, who's going to go? And that's the feeling of most veterans who go and serve our nation. So we do owe them a debt. I was a 44-year-old. I had been out of the military for over 15 years when I deployed to Iraq. I was 44 years old. I was a lawyer. I was, quote, mature. My brain was mature. The stuff that I was involved in the civil affairs unit and what I saw in the city of Mosul still affect me today. I watched a TV show on Iraq and Mosul specifically, and I was bawling like a baby just 2 days ago. My point in telling you that is anybody that's involved in combat, you have some sort of trauma, whether you were wounded physically, mentally. Every human being that is involved in war is affected, whether it's slightly or very deeply. My point is we need to continue courts like this and expand them everywhere we can. In Pennsylvania, we don't have them in every county. I am one of the advocates to have them in every county, every jurisdiction throughout the United States. But in our own state, Pennsylvania we're still growing. And we need them in every county, despite the fact that we started ours in 10 and Judge Barrasso up in Scranton started his a couple of years before that. But so I just kind of want to get that out there. And I know, again, I'm preaching to the choir. So I'll get into how Philadelphia does it. So I know one of the questions that was incorporated that people wanted me to incorporate into our presentation is, how does a criminal case get referred to Philadelphia Veterans Court? Well, again, similar to how New Jersey is doing it, it comes from the very beginning. When a person is arrested, there are intake forms. And we have changed those intake forms that if they're a veteran, they check it. If they check that they're a veteran, that immediately goes into a pile for the prosecutor to review. The prosecutor will go ahead and try to take a look at this person's record as best they can, and they will alert my Veterans Court team. They will take a look at this case holistically. The prosecutor weighs in. Unlike New Jersey, it is not, the prosecutor is only part of the team. The discretion is basically comes down to me. And the prosecutor has been pretty good with us in Philadelphia about bringing these cases in. Our magistrates, our police officers, some of them have been trained to recognize veterans in need of help. We had one case years ago where a Delaware River Port Authority police officer found a veteran in his vehicle on the bridge. And he was so concerned about this veteran, he wound up calling all kinds of people to help him. He obviously had to arrest him. But then this police officer, who was also a military veteran, came into our court and followed this case along to the point where he actually became this defendant's mentor. So they come from a lot of different places. How is it different than other criminal cases? In Veterans Court, we do not accept murders and we do not accept sex cases. Anything else out there is up for grabs. We take a look at each individual case. Again, we look at it holistically and as a team. If we can bring the case in, we are bringing it in as best we can. The reason Veterans Court started, and the analogy or the example that I got was, a veteran comes home, he just served in Iraq, and he's driving down the wrong side of the road because he's still living the IED nightmare. When he gets pulled over by the police officer, for whatever reasons, he gets into an altercation with this police officer. Now, there had never been any type of lawlessness before in this person's background, but then he's arrested for, aggressive driving, assaulting a police officer. He's starting to have his PTSD is coming out. So this was the exact person that we wanted these courts to start for. So I'm very careful about, I can't not allow an aggravated assault against police officer coming to my court. So we are very liberal with that, and we'll take a look at each one. We will look at their individual record, their history, and we also take into account their military service. Because a person who has an alleged assault against a police officer who has not had combat, we might not allow him in. But a person who served in Fallujah or in the valleys of Afghanistan, yeah, we're going to look at him much harder to bring him in. Who's at the hearing, the first hearing for a veteran in Veterans Court? The courtroom is packed. The courtroom is packed with all kinds of agencies. And I know some of the people that are out there listening have been in my courtroom. I believe my good friend Joe Griffey is likely out there in this audience because I see him at these meetings out at the VA all the time. So many folks that are out here have witnessed what we do in Philadelphia. And at that hearing, obviously the judge is there, the attorneys are there, our VJOs are there. Miss Maynard has been fantastic with us. We have some others that come in, Kevin Karlanke, Dina, Hung. So we get great support. We have vet center representatives that are there. We have people who help provide service for those who are not VA eligible. DBH, Department of Behavioral Health, comes in to assist us. RHD, outside organizations such as the Multi-Service Center. We have, generally speaking, 6 to 10 mentors in our courtroom every week. We have the city's veterans liaison, Carlos, comes over. The VA Health from Wissahickon Avenue comes out. So we have over a dozen folks, outside agencies and internal team groups that are inside our courtroom each and every week. And we've been doing this now for over 10 years now, and every week, with the exception of a few weeks, and generally speaking, they turn out to be graduations that we are unable to sit during a regular session. Our team role is huge. Prior to court, our team gets together the day before and they go over all the reports. They try to sit down and come to a consensus on what's the next step for our veteran. You know, do we need to sanction this veteran? Do we need to reward him or her? Do we need to up her treatment? Do we need to change her treatment? Do we need to change her mentor? And this is what our group of between 6 and 10 folks, they'll sit down and do this every week before the cases that we get. So our vet court role is extremely important. Not every single person on those teams are veterans, but there are people who respect the service of veterans. We rely heavily on the personality of our people. We want the expertise, but we want them to blend together well. We want them to make sure that the veterans are understanding that each and every person in that team cares about them, because a lot of folks who are getting in trouble with the law, who are lost, veterans who need assistance, they need somebody to let them know that I care, or you care, we care. So it's extremely important that we do that. Our mentors program, excuse me, our mentor program I'm extremely proud of. My head mentor is a guy by the name of Timmy Wynn. Timmy Wynn was a Marine, went to Iraq, came home, got arrested quite a few times, was a mess, losing his family. When we got him into Veterans Court, we were able to put our arms around this tough Marine. And Timmy now is our shining example of somebody who comes in, buys into the program, sticks around, was volunteering his time to stick around, eventually became one of our mentors. He is now one of the national spokespeople and national mentors for the Justice for Vets. He could get paid for his speeches. He could get paid $10,000 every time he opens his mouth to talk about what Veterans Court means to him. But he's in our courtroom. He's one of the national trainers, and he's our head mentor. And I'm so proud of him. And I have a few others who were Veterans Court graduates. Now, we don't accept every graduate as a mentor. We screen them. We look at how they did, et cetera. But yeah, our mentor program is thriving. We're always looking for more. The one thing I will be looking at, when we have non-veterans who come across us to ask us to be mentors, most of the time I try to get them to come in and help us in another way. For example, if you're a lawyer, you can come in and help us with the upgrades of discharges, et cetera. So I try to keep the mentors that they're all veterans, but I am trying to maybe expand that in my mind to see perhaps we're missing some people who would be fantastic mentors. I'm going to go ahead and ask my VJO, because I know she has a few remarks that she would like to let everybody know. But again, the VJOs, and I appreciate the partnership. It was a struggle when we first began to get the VA to relax some of your archaic rules, but I am proud of the folks that have been coming to my courtroom and the working relationship that we have with the VJOs and the VA. It definitely, we work together very well right now, and I'm proud to call Miss Maynard one of our fine VJOs. Miss Maynard, please.
Well, before Peg talks, I want to introduce her, and then she can go into her role. So Margaret Maynard is a licensed clinical social worker, an ACSW, and as Judge Dugan just mentioned, a Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator in Philadelphia County, POW/MIA Coordinator, Social Work Services at the VA Medical Center, the Michael J. Crescenz VA Medical Center. I called her Margaret right now, but she prefers Peg. She's employed by the Veterans Health Administration. She's a United States Air Force veteran, a graduate of the University of Central Florida in Orlando, a wife, a mother, and a proud grandmother of 12. Woof! She has worked with children and families in the area of child abuse, family reunification, domestic violence, HIV and AIDS, and substance abuse. Ms. Maynard provides instruction on veterans' mental health issues to Philadelphia police officers as part of crisis intervention training program. Since 2012, she's a coordinator with the Veterans Justice Outreach Program. She is also a facilitator with male veterans and the Intimate Partner Violence Program, and provides weekly outreach visits to veterans incarcerated at the Philadelphia prison system. So what I'm going to do right off the bat is ask the basic question of what is the role of the Veterans Justice Coordinator within the Veterans Treatment Court system? Thanks, Peg.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Judge Dugan. So this slide here, this is the purpose of the VJO outreach program, and this is the national description, is to avoid unnecessarily criminalization of mental health and extended incarceration among vets. I'm sure everybody can read this, by making sure eligible vets at risk for homelessness, substance abuse, and physical health problems have access to VA mental health and substance abuse services where they are needed. So the first thing we would do when we meet a veteran is find out if they're eligible and if they're signed up. You know, if they're connected to the VA in any way. I meet with a lot of vets, like Judge Dugan said, and like you said, up at the jail. And a lot of that's about education, because there's a lot of vets out there who have no idea what their benefits are. They don't know where their DD-214 is. We can help them with all that. So that's a big part of it. But in the Veterans Court, basically my role is, when we first meet with the veteran, is to get them assessed up at the hospital. We bring them in, we get them assessed, we find out what their needs are, what's going on with them, mentally, physically, and we get them set up for the treatment. We get them the appointments, we get them set up with the doctors, and then, they go to their appointments, and I'm watching the whole time. I'm waiting for reports to come back, and then I'll put together a treatment plan for the court, for the judge, for the district attorney, and the lawyers to look at, and then support that veteran while they're going to court with their treatment. Sometimes they'll get confused, like, why do I have to do this, or why do I have to do that? Or they constantly need education about a lot of things. Their lawyer will give them the legal, ramifications of their case, but sometimes they don't understand about just behavior in court, or why they have to go to certain sessions, or, why this happened, why that's happening. So we provide a lot of education continuously to our veterans. We also, some of the places, it's not just at the VA where we set up treatment, okay? We have a lot of options. We have the vet centers, which we use a lot. Sometimes it's getting vets set up to get, put in a claim, sometimes they don't understand that they're eligible for some of this stuff. So I work a lot with vets to try to get them to the right people to work on claims. And that's with the VA state programs, the VSOs, get them set up with things like that. We also have a lot of places that we send vets for therapy that would be way off the VA scale. And that would be, we had a program at Drexel that was offering free for veterans. They got, I think, 7 sessions. It was targeted specifically to a problem. We have an equine therapy program up in Bucks County. Beautiful place, beautiful. You go up there, you get out of the car, and it's like, oh, you're in another world, That's go up for PTSD. We have an options program at the jail. Sometimes we send them up for, we send them to the VMC. We had a program called MAP that kind of went away. It was built up pretty big. That's where we had a lot of lawyers coming in and volunteering their time. And we had a point guy. We would send vets with other problems, because usually when they have a criminal problem, by the time we get them, they got a lot of other problems too. They got civil issues. They got child custody. They got all kinds of stuff going on. So we try to, and that will keep the stressors on them. You can get them treatment, but if all that's still, kind of flailing in the background, it's hard for them to get better. So we try to, like the judge said, holistic. We try to look at the whole picture. So we try to get them help with things like that. We have, trying to think of everything we have. Oh, we have a situation up at one of the state prisons where we send some of our guys up, and they have, and the judge might talk about this later, but we have 5 men up there who, have been in jail for a long time. and they meet with our vets and they talk to them about, and they're guys that most of them came back from Vietnam, some of them, and got into trouble. And there were no veterans courts in those days. So they're up there doing excessive time for, well, not excessive, but a long time for the crimes they committed. And maybe it was one stupid day that they did something very, very stupid because they got into drugs and alcohol, because their mental health was flailing and they didn't take care of it. So they try to work with our vets to try to say to them, look, you know, this isn't, you know, it's not a game here. You could wind up here. So we've had a lot of positive, impactful results from that. The guys really come back, and we went up. The judge asked the staff to go up. And I found it. I came back, thought about it for days. It was like, wow, that was something else. So we have a lot of good things that we try to send the vets to and get them set up for. So that would be a lot of my role in the beginning. That's how it starts out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, Peg. Thank you very much. And Judge Dugan and Peg, what strikes me, and also in New Jersey, Judge DeLury, is there's definitely kind of this one team, one fight mentality of let's pull a whole bunch of resources together to help veterans that are struggling, and that's awesome. Judge Dugan, I spent time in Mosul as well in 2003, 2004, and it was horrible to see what was going on in the news relatively recently. But okay, so Judge Dugan, a question for you. You did mention a mentors program. You went into some detail. Can you provide a little bit more? So, for instance, how do they get assigned to a particular veteran, and how do they interact?
Sure. But Hugo, were you one of those helicopter pilots that were flying cover for us?
Yeah, eyes over Mosul, that's for sure.
As somebody who was on the ground at various times in my career, one of the greatest sounds in the world is an American aircraft above you, because you just felt so secure. One of our best strategies on the battlefield is the fact that we have air superiority, and it was always great to hear, whether it's a sonic boom from a jet. I had a buddy I played football with, John Spar, rest his soul. He was killed in Iraq as a Marine pilot, or whether it was a helicopter overhead. It was always a great feeling to know you guys were there. So I didn't mean to digress, but I do always appreciate that. And I know the ground pounders love it when they see you guys up there. Our mentors. So it's kind of an individual decision. What I mean by that is when a new veteran comes in, there's 20 different eyeballs sizing him or her up, trying to figure out, look at the mannerisms, look how they're looking around the courtroom. When they were greeted, did they seem to get along with this mentor or that mentor? Is it a quiet person, a little bit more open, etc.? Was he or she a Marine? So we do try to pair up services. I prefer to have an airman with an airman. I prefer a woman with a woman. I prefer a Marine with a Marine, but that's not always necessarily true. We will adjust fire. We have to decide whether or not is this young infantryman going to relate to a 76-year-old Vietnam veteran? And some do and some don't. So I rely on my team and my mentors to say, hey, Judge, this isn't a good fit. So I put it back on them. Okay, so who is? Let's adjust fire and give somebody else a chance with them. And frankly, sometimes we have to double team, that we have 2 or 3 people to talk to our veterans. We're blessed. We have a coordinator who's a social worker who she steps up. Again, it's a whole team that becomes part of the mentorship of our veterans. I did want to touch on, and some of our mentors are in jail for life. And I mean that sincerely. I went up to SCI, it's used to be Gradeford, where some of our most hardened criminals, longest sentences, sit. And that's now called SCI Phoenix. I went up there for a Veterans Day or Memorial Day program, and the program that those men incarcerated there put on was phenomenal. And then I started talking to them about their service. It just blew me away. And they said, hey, Judge, do you think we could talk to some of your vets? I was like, wow, of course you can. Well, so get my veterans in Philly up to Gradeford is kind of not an easy transportation issue. So I reached out to the multi-service center. they said they gave us a van and a driver to take up 8 to 10 vets every couple weeks. The prisons opened up their doors, and they would have a roundtable discussion with my veterans. They had 4 or 5 men who were up there for 30, 40, life, etc., because of something that they did after they came home from service. And they're talking to our veterans about, hey, don't make the same mistake I did and wind up in here because of your instincts or your decision-making skills. And these guys pour themselves into talking, mentoring our veterans. The feedback from my veterans, from the defendants, is amazing. They come back and they start telling me this. Some of them tear up. And some of them actually know a few of the people that are in there through family or friends. So there's really is a very good connection. With the COVID crisis, I'm getting letters from the guys that are in prison saying, hey, Judge, how can we hook this up to see these guys now? So we are starting a Zoom program where our veteran defendants will be able to Zoom into prison to talk to these men, because it's a two-way street. Those men in prison are getting some therapy because they're helping our guys. And our guys are getting a lot of out because, but for me, we could in the same shoes. You never know which direction you're going to go. So I did want to just make sure I talked about the SCI Phoenix. Mentors are key. When our people graduate, we present our people a Veterans Court coin. We're very proud of it. So when somebody graduates, they get one of these, or somebody who is of great assistance to our people, we give them these coins. I'm looking forward to being able to go up to SCI Phoenix to give these gentlemen a coin if they're allowed to accept them. But
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it still strikes me as to the number of people who care about what's going on with these veterans. That's awesome. Peg, so for you, what happens when veterans don't follow the treatment plan set for them, or conversely, that they do exceedingly well? Can you talk about that?
You're muted, Peg.
I got you. All right. So we have a sanctions program, and that starts with maybe their first infraction and goes up. So maybe their first infraction, they're asked to write an essay, which to us, I could whip an essay out in no time, but not everybody can. So for some of them, that is like a fate worse than death. I got to write an essay. They haven't written one in years. So it will start out that way. It might be, the essay might be directed towards a subject that, just happened with them or what they got in trouble for. It could be about recovery. It could be about honesty, things like that. And it works up to the next time they get in trouble, it could be they have to do so many hours of community service. And then the next time they get in trouble, it could be they have to do a day with the judge, which means they have to go into a courtroom, maybe not Judge Dugan anymore because he's the president judge now, but it used to be him if he was in a room with murder cases or with, really heavy duty cases. The idea was to get them to see that this is where this is going to go if you don't get your act together, and then it could wind all the way up to, time in jail. I mean, from a day or two for the first time they go up to a week or two. I mean, this is where this could go if they don't, start paying attention. They usually get their act together, but we do have the few that it's a continuous situation. And then for incentives, we have a board. And when they first put up with this idea of the board, I was skeptical, but boy, I was wrong. It is a board where if you've done well, your name gets up there. You have to be 60 days clean. You have to be, no demerits. You have to have done very well in this time frame since you've been to court last week. And once they get on that board, they want to get on that board. And once they get on it, they want to stay. And they talk about it in treatment. When I read their treatment notes, they talk about they were on the board. I mean, this is a big deal to them to get on that board. So that really works well. The other thing is we have a probation, which we haven't mentioned him yet. We have a probation officer, Frank Romeo, who is, tops, really tops. And he does a lot of supervision with the vets, and he does drug testing. And so that's a way for us to kind of keep things going. They know they have to get drug tested, so they kind of keep on their P's and Q's with that. He's very supportive. He does home visits. So he's another picture in how to kind of keep things going. You know, if you know someone's coming to your house and you know you have to get drug tested, that's a reason to kind of, in my opinion, stay, you know, on the up and up. That doesn't always work, but that's, you know, that's a good way to look at it, you know. So that's some of the things we do with follow-up and kind of keeping people kind of on the, you know, on the even keel.
Great. Thanks a lot. Just to, again, to stay with time, Judge Dugan, you mentioned this a little bit, but this is both for both you and Peg. Obviously, we're in COVID-19. We're doing a Zoom call. What creative ways has your team worked to engage veterans during COVID-19? You mentioned Zoom calls up to the prison. Are there other ways that you're addressing this?
So, yeah, we're still having Veterans Court on Thursday, but we are Zooming in. We are having the whole team. I'm sitting in the courtroom, and most of the team is calling in, and we're discussing the cases. And one of the problems I'm having, to be honest with you, is what's called public access for Zoom hearings. So unfortunately, our defendants are not on camera. They're just talking to their attorneys or their social workers or our VJOs, but we're still having these team meetings and still monitoring our people's treatment. And we have terminated some cases. We have moved them on to graduation so that their life can continue, so that they can start getting their expungement. And I know the VA has a lot of good telehealth, et cetera, that I think Ms. Maynard will elaborate on for a second.
Yeah, we always had telehealth for the vets. We've had that for years, but we have this Veterans Connect program where you can, you know, they can see you, you can see them. It's done right on the cell phone. They just have to download an app. It's pretty easy, especially if, I mean, if you have an iPhone or an Android, it's very easy. We also have My Healthy Vet, which a lot of vets have, and now there's a way to even send documents through it. They can sign them, send them back. We're really getting creative. I mean, the VA is introducing more and more as we go along. You really have to be kind of up and up on the tech stuff, which, you know, is a little bit of an undertaking for myself, but we're really moving along with this. I think everybody sees that this could go on for a while. So, you know, their minds are spinning and we're coming up with better ideas of how to do this and how to keep everybody going, you know, without having to go face-to-face for a while. But we do have face-to-face. We can see people. They can always come to the emergency room. They can come to the urgent care clinic. There's a lot of the appointments at the hospital that are in person. We are gearing up with more of that now at the hospital. That's been going on for a while. So, you know, there's so many options, so many options.
That's awesome. So Judge Dugan and Peg, thank you very much. We're going to move into general question and answer now. So we'll have both New Jersey and Philadelphia. One of the questions that popped up in question and answer, and I'll kind of broaden it, is are each New Jersey and well, let's call it Southern New Jersey and Philadelphia, are you keeping statistics? So like, are you able to say, here's how many females, here's what branches, here's what eras of service, here's the general challenges? Are you able to kind of collect that data and not necessarily be predictive, but kind of understand the demographics of who is coming to Veterans Court? New Jersey, let's start with you.
We've been doing it anecdotally because, again, this is a prosecutor's program. It's being run out of the AG's office. I saw on the chat somewhere that there was over 4,000 applications throughout the state, but a very low number of admissions. I'm astounded by that number. It's news to me. And that's going to be a task for me to follow up to see what's going on in the other counties. Every application, and you saw our brief stats just in the couple of months we've been doing this over the last 2 years. We've only had rejections of a few because of their lack of qualification under the statute. Unlike Judge Dugan, which I wish we had this ability to, we take all comers and can only and push out the most violent or the most heinous acts. Yeah, we don't have that, but we're keeping stats. I keep track of the service members branch because I like to address that when we're having our meeting and our face-to-face with them. There's a little, the good-natured service rivalry, I think, is always a very important part of our interactions. try to remember our service birthdays, ask them a little bit about some of the pleasant things and some of the unpleasant things. And Judge Dugan, thank you. I'm in awe of your service and everything you've been doing here so far in this court. And if you don't mind, I'm going to model a great deal of what you're doing to the extent I can here in New Jersey. But we get the vets talking about it. We had one last month where he said, I'm having a terrible day, and this is really awful, and it's bringing back a lot of things I don't really want to talk about. And that was meaningful for everybody else on the call. We did that by way of Zoom, but everybody else heard that, and I tried to affirm what I had just heard, and Mr. Walter did, and the prosecutor did. That's not only okay, it's what we're here for. And to share that and have the courage to open your kimono, as it were, and let everybody else know what's going on, and you're inside. And that was so. But I am going to keep a view of stats, and that's a bit of an education for me today.
So as far as statistics in Philadelphia, we haven't kept the stats that we should. We've had, I know we've had over 1,100 veterans. I know there are some people trying to work on going back to trying to find a branch of services, the sex, et cetera, because with those figures, a lot of people always try to get grants and stuff like that. So they are important, but it's also to be predictive as well. But yeah, unfortunately, we focus on so many other things that sometimes we forget that some of these things, we probably should be keeping better track of who we see. One of the things Ms. Maynard was talking about was rewards. I went over and picked up this little flag that I have on my shelf. These are the type of rewards that we give. These are trinkets. But when you give a veteran a flag like this, I mean, they go to parade rest, and Judge DeLury, I'm sure you're experiencing this now. These folks, they go back to their military time, and the pride just comes all over their body again. And it truly is a great thing to see. It's some of the most rewarding work I could ever do in my life. It can get hard too, because our veterans are also at the forefront of the epidemic on drugs and heroin. So it can also get a lot heavier for those of us in this world right now, because when you bring this veteran in, you see him every week or every month, and you get to know him for 2 years, and you know his record. And then all of a sudden one day he has the wrong batch of heroin and he's dead. It affects everybody in that courtroom, everyone on that team, because it's somebody that we lose. And because of our volume, we unfortunately have that statistical issue where we do lose a person and literally lose him to this epidemic that's out there. So it as rewarding as it is, it can also be very heavy for all of our team members. But that's the reason why we got to keep going, because we don't need more like that. So we have to step up and continue to move forward.
If I could just jump in here, we don't have challenge coins yet here in Atlantic and Cape May, Judge Dugan, but I'm going to see if I can get a budget for that, even if it's my own. But as part of our graduation process, we give out this. I'm a veteran. My oath never expires. Same experience. And it's never a Navy event unless you give out a coffee mug. So that's we make it a part of our graduation.
Give me a call on the coins. We can let you know where we got them from.
Super. Thanks, Judge.
So Judge Dugan, there was a question about HR 886, the Veterans Court going national. So again, for both Philadelphia and New Jersey, what's your read on that? Judge Dugan, you mentioned that you're trying to push this out to all of Pennsylvania. What about a national level?
So I certainly believe that every jurisdiction in the United States should have a veterans court. I don't have any doubt about it in some form. And to make them cookie cutter, though, I think is a problem. When Pennsylvania tried to do a cookie cutter, what they actually did was the law actually abolished Philadelphia Municipal Court, Veterans Court. So it was just the way it was written. So I'm hoping that these laws that people write, they're actually talking to those, like Judge DeLury and myself, et cetera, to find out what's working, what's not working. But no, I am an advocate for it should be in every jurisdiction throughout the United States. And we're blessed. Our MDJs are now starting to do these on their own. It's just a matter of connecting. Sometimes it's only a matter of connecting a vet with the VA. Even if we can educate all judges and all systems to do that, we're getting better and better at it. But no, I would certainly advocate for a national, every jurisdiction to have one. And that's what Justice for Vets does. If anybody's interested, justiceforvets.org, you can look it up. National organization, they'll help train mentors. They'll help guide you to be a mentor. They'll help you how you can advocate to get a veterans court in your county if you don't have one, or your state. I highly recommend that people get in touch with them. And yes, I'm an advocate for this in every jurisdiction.
And Judge DeLury, before you answer, let me add a kind of a modification. Is there resistance to veterans courts, or is it just lack of awareness from your perspective?
I think there's probably not resistance. I think it's an awareness question, and it's just another thing on the plate question. And while people love to say, thanks for your service, sometimes they don't always want to follow through with what that means. Thanks for your service is a bromide that doesn't necessarily do a whole lot for a veteran who's suffering, is in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system. So I think that it requires the statutory approach that we took, again, my opinion, I think it would have been maybe a more holistic, to borrow Judge Dugan's phrase, approach if everybody was in a partnership in this, and rather than setting up some discretionary program, say, oh, you're a vet, okay, check that box, we'll go see DeLury in 3 weeks and we'll see what happens. So I think an approach that maybe takes a court approach, whether you deal with it as diversion or probationary treatment, or however it is that you deal with the charge, that's a concern. But what's more important is how do you deal with the offender? How do you deal with the veteran to get him to her to a successful place? So I don't think it's a lack of care. I think maybe it's just a lack of precision, or maybe they just took the easy way to get something in. And incrementalism in government sometimes is not a terrible thing, right?
Right.
Get over one place and hopefully they don't abolish it the next time they try to fix it. But I think it needs to be a little more embracing.
And so I'd like to bring in John and Michael and Peg to kind of, as an addendum to that question. I assume it's pretty challenging having to deal with different veterans courts in different counties. So for instance, I'm up in Bucks County and I've been involved in veterans court, and it looks significantly different than what Philadelphia looks like. So John and Michael and Peg, I don't know if you have to deal with this so much. What's that like?
Can I chime in there, Hugo?
Yeah.
Listen, I've only been in Judge DeLury's court, and it's like springtime. He's compassionate. He's fun. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He tries to help these veterans. So I don't want to go anywhere else. That's why I'm always in my best. Okay. It's a great program. And again, I only had one, and I had him for 18 months, which was challenging. Getting back and meeting him and texting him and catching up to him for breakfast or lunch or dinner. But the program was seamless. I love working with Judge DeLury and his staff. I'm happy as a pig in slop. Thank you.
Awesome. John or Peg?
Let me just say that I agree with Mr. Mimms, or Dr. Mimms, is that in New Jersey, every county, and it may be this way for other states too, every county is different. For instance, I also cover Cumberland County. Cumberland County does not actually have a judge consistently involved. They don't have monthly status hearings. So it looks very different. It's basically a prosecutor program with me assisting veterans, getting them into treatment and helping them navigate the VA system and providing updates to the prosecutor's office. So they're working on getting a judge involved, and we've had a status hearing with a judge when a veteran entered the program. But it's very different in different counties, and I'm sure Kevin Carr-Lemke, which works with PEG, can attest to that in the counties that they cover for in the Philadelphia VA. Every county has a very different approach to the way they're handling the Veterans Diversion Program.
Yeah, as you know, Hugo, Bucks County has a program, a Veterans Court program for Bucks County, and it's a lot different than ours. They have hearings, but they're not like ours. They're different. They have a graduation. I've been to it. They do not have they don't use their VJO like we use ours in Philadelphia. Very different role. You know, she doesn't do assessments for them. She helps out with treatment when they call, but that's after their mentors have done the assessment. It's very different there, very.
Gotcha.
And just also to follow up, Hugo,
Yeah.
one of the things as I listen to the Philadelphia court and the things that they have that we don't, that makes me jealous, you know, the public defender involvement, the judge, we do have the judge involvement, but they have a mentor coordinator over there and someone really coordinating that mentor program. And we could really use that in our court, and the probation involvement too, since ours is diversion. They have drug testing through probation, whereas our drug testing program has to be through VA, which has issues that come up with in that situation.
Right.
I think
Yeah, thank you for that. Go ahead, sorry.
one more time, the defense bar, I think, is key to this, since it is a prosecutor's program. And to the extent, and I've been educating, I've done bench bar meetings in our 2 counties to get it out to the defense bar. I've tried to identify those members of the bar who have had service or service connection of some kind, so they can have an appreciation. Our PD in Atlantic County is a Coast Guard Academy grad. She's was a cutter driver, and now she's a PD. So she's a perfect fit and really dedicated to wanting to be part of it. The private bar, I'll call them up to sidebar when all of a sudden I'm taking an arraignment and the guy, you know, is being, you know, arraigned on some second-degree official misconduct, and I make the question, I see in his paperwork that he's a veteran. I said, have you considered applying this to the Veterans Diversion Program Council? And so it's an education process for us to get them to that point. It's still so new here.
Yeah, I think one thing that's popping into my mind as we're hearing about this, you know, I mentioned the one team, one fight. For each of your jurisdictions, was there a model that existed that you kind of applied to Veterans Court, like the number of people that come in to help that veteran with case management essentially? So was there a model that you kind of adopted, or are you starting from scratch? And do we think that's a viable model for applying to general, you know, non-veteran violations? You know, so for each of you, I don't know, does that question make sense?
I got an answer for that one. Philadelphia, we've been involved in treatment courts for years. My predecessors, both President Judges Neifeld and Crescenz, were heavily involved in either mental health treatment court or drug treatment court. Lou Crescenz was one of the pioneers in drug treatment court. And one of his peers was a guy by the name of Robert Russell. Judge Russell from Buffalo. He's given credit for putting a model together for Veterans Court, had one of the first Veterans Court in the nation. And I'm not going to lie, I modeled it a lot after his, and we've tweaked it and made it my own. But we definitely stole a lot of ideas from Judge Russell. I consider him one of my mentors. I call him on the phone. His head mentor works with with Tim Wynn at national conferences. So I've looked at the Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court model, and you know, that's pretty much the national, you know, that's more the national Bible, with everybody kind of tweaking it to their own county. But that's where I got mine from.
Got it. Thank you.
My research was similar to Judge Dugan's, and I modeled it on we only have the one so-called treatment court in New Jersey, and that's recovery court, as we call it, drug court throughout the rest of the state. And our institutional, use the word reticence, but the way that we have conducted businesses as a court system here, we don't have specialized treatment courts. So, but I've modeled it against our recovery court. Very similar to that. We don't have probation department intervention, which I would welcome and think would be a great add-on to the justice outreach officers and the like, because you know, we don't have that day-to-day checking in. And if I guess I could order a substance test if I wanted to, and hopefully that when they're admitting to services, that's happening. But I think it needs to be a little bit more integrated, more like a recovery court, so that we're really putting meshing treatment in with the court event. I mean, just making somebody show up, checking the box that you're here, only gets you so far.
Great. And so we're getting close to wrapping up. We got to end at 10:30. I do for each for New Jersey and for Philadelphia, is there a website or a one-stop shop that provides information about Veterans Court and kind of provides that integration? So for Judge DeLury, information about John and Michael, for Philadelphia, Peg, and the other agencies. Is there a one-stop shop for each of your organizations?
Sure, I'll give the website and a quick Google search for Veterans Diversion Program in Jersey will give you all this, but I would just go to the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office as your first stop. They're the bigger program in the state right now, and they're www.acpo.org/forms-veterans-diversion-program.
Okay.
And in Philadelphia, I will just have to fall on my sword here and tell you that in one word, no. But I can give you, I know there's a screen out there, a slide that has my email address on it. It's Judge Patrick Dugan. You can, Google me, find my phone number. Everyone's welcome to reach out. And it's one of the tasks that I have given my coordinator, my Veterans Court coordinator, the task to get us up and running on a website. We've tried before, it just wasn't working right. So, but yeah, that has to be a priority that we put the information out there so everybody can get to it.
Great. Okay, so there are more questions. Here's what DVVC is promising to do. We'll save those unanswered questions, and we will look into trying to get them answered so that we can post them on the website. Again, www.dvvc.weebly.com, so that you can still get the answers. We just ran out of time today. So there's been a lot of information. Again, dvvc.weebly.com. We'll also be on the Facebook page, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we all hope that you found the information useful today. Remember elections, August 16th. And Larry Holman is the person to, if you're interested in being on the executive committee of Delaware Valley Veterans Consortium, we'll post that email address again. So thank you everyone for attending today's meeting. Our fall meeting is in October when elections will take place. Our plan is for that also to be a virtual meeting, a Zoom meeting. If your veteran service organization is not a member of DVVC, please become a member. You can find that out also on the website. I want to thank all our panelists. Judge DeLury, thank you very much. Judge Dugan, thank you. John and Michael, thank you. Peg, thank you very much. This was very informative for me as a veteran. I hope I never have to come in contact with this kind of system. But it's very gratifying to know that there are people out there that would look out for me, just like in the military. You're not alone, and it's awesome that we can let our veterans know that even when they're running afoul of the law. So stay safe, everybody. And if you need any assistance, you can reach out to any of us. We can do that through dvvc.weebly.com. Are there any? Well, I know there's probably last comments, but again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much. And as I said, we will try and answer these questions and get them posted on the website. I noticed also that we did put up information about the election. So with that, thank you, everybody, panelists, especially. Thank you for your information. And attendees, thank you very much for coming today, and I hope you learned a lot. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Judge DeLury, thank you.
Pleasure there, Marine. Long.